You're watching NCTV. I'm Anne-Marie Battistone, and it is the season of Hanukkah, and we have a show today. With me is Rabbi Mimi Micner of the Beth Torah Synagogue over in Holliston, and she was very gracious to come on with me and talk about Hanukkah. We're going to talk about the history. We're going to look at some menorahs and talk about how people celebrate in their homes. Oh, thanks so much, Rabbi, for coming over. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Myself and Temple Beth Torah are very grateful for the invitation.
I wore blue and white for the occasion.
Very festive, yes.
Right. So can you tell us the story of the background, the history of Hanukkah?
Absolutely. So I think it's best to actually say that there are two stories of Hanukkah. One is the story that had to do with the Judean, the Maccabees defeat of the Greek Empire. The sort of context here is that the Greek Empire was quite dominant at the time. This is about 160, 165 BCE. They wanted to conquer Judea. This was one of the main, if not the main territory of the Jewish people at the time. And their hope was to conquer them and to sort of stop them from practicing Judaism. The context for it is that there was already an internal debate within the Jewish community, which still happens, about whether we should sort of stay with our traditional practices and ways of life, or whether we ought to adopt some of the sort of beliefs and practices and ways of life of the communities that we live among. So at the time, it was the sort of Hellenistic lifestyle that was a point of contention. So in comes Antiochus and wants to sort of conquer the land and wants to get the Jewish people to stop practicing Judaism, to stop keeping Shabbat, to stop eating kosher food and things like this. And part of what happens in the meantime is that the Greeks sort of destroy or cause destruction to the temple and desecrate the temple, which was a huge aspect of religious life at the time and was a real symbol of domination. So one of the stories of Hanukkah is about the number of years war in which eventually the Maccabees, who were a smaller kind of band of people, overcame the dominant, huge Greek Empire to sort of save their land and to save Jewish practice. So that was that's like one of the major stories of Hanukkah. The other is a story that came to us from the rabbis of the Talmud. We don't often sort of know that the story of the lights, which I'll talk about in a second, is something that actually came a little bit later in our tradition. But the way that the story goes is when the Maccabees defeated the Greeks, they went back to the temple to restore it, to clean it up and to make it usable again. And one of the things they did was light the temple menorah, relight it after many years. And we'll talk later, you've seen images of a menorah with 6 branches and then one central branch. That's the temple menorah. That was the way it was constructed in the temple. So, the story goes, they only had a little bit of oil. They thought it would last one day, but the oil sort of miraculously lasted 8. And that's why we do things now, like eat food fried in oil, and we light menorahs and Hanukkah candles. So those are really the two stories of Hanukkah.
So is the second one considered a myth?
Depends what you ask. I think for many people, they would say, this is what I believe happened. This is the story of Hanukkah. I really believe it happened. And for others, they say this story may or may not have happened, but it's incredibly inspiring spiritually and religiously. And so this holiday is really fundamentally about that story.
So it'd be kind of like, I may get in some trouble here, but it's kind of like the Christ rising from the dead. I mean, some people consider that a myth, and others think it actually happened. So it's kind of, Now, we're just going to look at one picture here. Now, this is a representation it's on the Arch of Titus in Rome. I think it might be in the Forum. And it looks like a scene, I believe it's a scene of Roman soldiers carrying away the spoils of the second temple destruction. And you can see on that one that there is a 7-candle lamp that they're carrying it pretty clearly there, and that's a frieze over the Arch of Titus. Now there's also I think the most ancient representation of that lamp is on a sarcophagus, which I couldn't get a very good picture of that. Now tell me, so now how do people celebrate at home? Are there things that people eat and do, or?
Absolutely. So Hanukkah is one of the holidays that we mostly celebrate in our own homes. And there are a few things that we tend to do. One is that we light the Hanukkah candles each day. The tradition has it that we put our menorah in our windows because we want people to see the menorahs and we want people to see the lights. And each day we light one more candle. So on the first day, we have actually sort of two candles, actually, because there's one candle we use to light the others. And then each day we add one more candle. So by the end of Hanukkah on the 8th night, we actually have 9 candles total in the menorah. So we light the candles. We say various blessings over lighting the candles. Many people will sing kind of different Hanukkah songs when they do this. And then a few other things happen. So some people will eat fried foods like latkes or donuts, again, connected to the oil story of Hanukkah. Some people will play dreidel. And, certainly there's a culture, especially now, of exchanging presents. So people will open presents. And that's, for many people, the sort of essence of celebrating Hanukkah at home.
Now, are the candles blessed by a rabbi? Or not necessarily? I've seen them in the stores.
No, they're just sort of candles that are made for this particular purpose, and that's about it. Yeah. Because
they have to be a certain sort of wax, isn't that right?
No, I've seen there's some that are beeswax, some that are paraffin. It sort of depends, and in fact, some people still use oil, a very kind of low olive oil. Yeah, you can find these menorahs that have these sort of small cups that you put in and you fill them with olive oil and you put a wick inside. It's beautiful. And people light them in their home.
I think one of the ones we're going to look at in a second has that. And I wondered about that. I said, gee, looks kind of big for a candle. Now, how did the giving of gifts come to be? Was that an influence of Christmas in the West?
Yes. Yes. It was not necessarily part of the celebration of the holiday traditionally. And, I understand, we live in a society where sort of Christmas dominates. And of course, there are a number of Jewish families that are sort of interfaith and multi-faith. And so certainly giving of gifts might be related to that, but also related to just being part of the larger society that we're part of. And, we as a Jewish community in the United States are very deeply enmeshed in the larger society that we're part of. And this is one of the results of that.
Do the Orthodox frown on that as being, as being inappropriate?
I have not heard that, but it's certainly, I could imagine, there are many opinions about things in the Jewish community among Jews, and I could imagine some Orthodox folks saying this is not the thing we do on Hanukkah, and others participating in that gift giving as well. There's diversity.
Now, those little coins, are they used at Hanukkah? And what's the story with those?
Oh, the coins.
The little chocolate coins, yes.
Yeah, so they're part of the way I know them best. There's not a deep religious significance to those, but it's part of the Dreidel Game that, the way it works is that there's sort of some coins in the center. Usually they're chocolate coins, and you spin the dreidel, and depending what you land on, you either take some coins from the middle or you put some coins in the middle. So it's part of the game.
Now, tell us about the dreidel. What's the origin of that? And the characters on the sides.
Yes. So the dreidel actually came about in the context of the Hanukkah stories that I told you about. So as I understand it, dreidel was a game that people would play while they were, as a way to kind of divert the attention of the Greek armies when they were actually kind of studying Torah or doing Jewish practices that were made illegal. So, for example, they would be doing something Jewish, and then the Greeks would come to check up on them, and then they would kind of stash everything away and hide it, and then play dreidel. So that the origins of it was around that moment, as I understand it. And now it's become mostly just a game associated with the holiday. And there are 4 letters on it, Hebrew letters, and they're different depending on whether you are in Israel or whether you are outside of Israel. The letters are, So the letters here are the Hebrew letters Nun, Gimel, He, and Shin, which stand for Nes Gadol Hayasham, which in English means a great miracle happened there. And when you're in the land of Israel, people say Nes Gadol Haya Po. So it's a different letter and word for the last letter and it means the great miracle happened here because it happened here when you're living there. So so the dreidel is a bit different there.
I've always been puzzled by that name Maccabee, and it didn't sound Middle Eastern. And then I was reading that it's 4 letters that represent 4 words. It's the first letter of 4 different words. Something, I don't remember what it was, but I thought that was kind of, and they were sort of a group unto themselves, or they kind of I don't want to say a militia, but were they a kind of a defense group, or were they activists, or what?
Yeah, I think those are both good ways to put it. If you read the book of Maccabees, there's 2 books of Maccabees. They're in what's called the Apocrypha, which is technically not in the Hebrew biblical canon, but is outside of it, sort of the same era. And of course, the Christians have their own canon, and some Christian denominations include this in their canon. But if you really look at the story in the books of Maccabees, the Maccabees themselves are a small group of zealots who are very committed. Yeah, so they were very committed to traditional Jewish practice. And what that meant is that they were part of a conflict with other Jews at the time who were more interested in assimilating and being part of kind of the Hellenistic culture. And when you look at that book, it's actually pretty violent. And some of the violence was not only the Greeks against the Jewish community, but was intra-Jewish violence of Maccabees kind of waging war against Jews who wanted to assimilate. And trying to sort of promote traditional Jewish practice in that way. And we also have stories in there of people who were aligned with the Maccabees actually martyring themselves rather than transgress Jewish law. So in some ways, when we look deeper into the story, there's some tensions there. We might feel uncomfortable with certain aspects of it, of the military aspect of it, of the martyrdom aspect of things. And, one of the theories about why the books of Maccabees are not actually included in the Jewish canon is precisely because of this discomfort with martyrdom and discomfort with some of the violence in it.
Because of course, Judaism is much older than Christianity, but it kind of makes you think of the group that followed Christ, and the Christian martyrs, and what they went through, and Now, here's something that just occurred to me. What is the origin of the blue and white?
Oh, the blue and white, that's related to the state of Israel and the colors of its flag.
The flag, exactly, because the country is very young. Yeah. I mean, it was founded in 1948, so it's only about 72 years old. It was something, I was going to ask you something else. It was, here's a question. Now, in terms of observant, there's not really, how did the 8, or I should say that the 9 candelabra, menorah, how did that come to be? Why was there a switch from the 6 or 7 branches, I guess you would say, which we saw in the last picture? And I think there's another one coming up with the 6 branches, or 7 actually.
Yeah.
How did that happen to change over? Did you happen to know, or?
Well, so I think it's a reflection of the 8 nights. So when the story is the oil.
Oh, of course, right.
Right?
Oh, because the temple lamp was earlier than everything. Oh, sorry. Okay, exactly. Right. I knew that, and I.
You actually know more than you think. It's actually quite impressive how much you know about the temple menorah.
Well, as I told you, I'm very familiar with the Jewish culture. I grew up with a lot of Jewish kids in high school. Now, suppose a Jew does not have access to a menorah.
Yes.
Can they light any candles? Just put them in cups or what have you, or any cups of oil, and that's considered acceptable.
My recommendation in that case is to actually just get those little round tea lights. And what I might do is sort of spread them out in a line. And then for, the candle that you use to light the other candles, it's called a shamash. And I might just stack 2 of those tea lights on top of each other and the top one to light the others. That's a way that I might recommend doing it if you don't have a menorah at home.
Now, we're going to look at some more. The other thing that kind of was interesting that I looked up was, and I mean, I should have known this. Makes perfect sense, but that menorah is the oldest religious symbol in mankind. Oh, certainly in the world. I mean, it's continuously used. It continues to be used. I mean, it's certainly older than the cross.
Mm-hmm. I've not thought about it that way, but certainly it's a symbol.
And I believe Muhammad came in much later than the Jews, and founded. Well, okay. So let me see. I think so. We can look at some of these pictures. So we looked at the Ark of Titus. Okay. Now, all right. The second one, and I think this is probably a Victorian menorah that's next, and I don't remember whether that has the 9 or the 7. That's a beautiful one. Now this third one, I don't want to ask you. I don't know if you can answer this question, but the third one is kind of odd. It's on a little table. This little table has an arch behind it, and on that are symbols. And I thought it was the zodiac. And I don't know if you still have those pictures in front of you, but I don't think it is. Is it the zodiac?
Actually, this is no longer part of Jewish practice and life, but for a period of time, zodiac symbols were part of both sort of Jewish, what's the best way to say this, I guess, part of Jewish religious and spiritual life, and was also very much part of synagogue decoration. So and each month has a sort of associated zodiac symbol. So it could very well be that the symbol for that month was on, is what you're referring to, but zodiac was once, yes, part of Jewish practice.
Because they didn't look like the regular symbols for the zodiac when I looked closer.
They're slightly different. So for example, for this month, is the zodiac symbol for this month traditionally is like a bow.
Oh, real? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I don't know. No, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is in the Western system. I don't know what it is for December. For this, now there's 2 lions on there, and I've seen pairs of lions. What's that about?
Yes. Okay. So each tribe of the people of Israel. So if you look back in the Bible, there are a number of tribes. Every tribe, so the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Levi, there's a bunch of tribes, and each tribe had its own flag and symbol. And the symbol of the tribe of Judah is a lion. So the territory the territory where the Hanukkah story took place is Judea. It was the land of the tribe of Judah, and so this was the tribe of Judah was very intimately involved in the Hanukkah story and experience. So its kind of symbol became part of kind of Hanukkah architecture, symbolism, and things like this. And it's really about bravery. It's really about strength. That's what the symbol's about, of the lion.
I saw one where the lions were looking in different directions. I thought that was kind of, maybe that might have just been an artist's, an artist's interpretation. Or now this next one, this next one, this ultra modern one. This is at the Mount Towson Memorial in Austria.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And some people say it sort of looks like the Tree of Life, but couldn't see too many different views of it. But it has the I think it's just the 7 candles, but it's quite striking. It's there, that whole camp was made into a memorial. So this particular menorah is off sort of by itself.
Yes.
Now this next one here, this silver one with these little urns, I wondered, and there's a little tray there, and in the front, I think that those look like wells. I don't know if you can see your images of them, mm-hmm. Rabbi. I don't know if you can see those.
So wells. I
see there's a little tray, and then it looks like, I don't know whether those are wells for oil.
So yeah, I think before there were candles, of course, things were oil. The lamps were burned with oil. So you would have these sort of small cups of oil that would be at the top of the menorah. And that was sort of the way that the temple menorah was constructed as well. I imagine those urns were for ashes that were left over.
Really?
That's my guess. It's not a traditional, traditional aspect.
Oh, no, it isn't. And I wondered if the little tray was for matches or what that was for. There's that little tray.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's not a particularly traditional aspect of a menorah. So it could just be a design preference.
And then this last one is a Bible cover. And I guess it's done in, it must be tooled onto leather. But it's a very beautiful one, and it has the 6 branches on that one. So it's the one, it represents the one from the temple.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to ask you was now tell us about those donuts. I kept seeing pictures of donuts.
Yes.
And they almost look like jelly donuts.
They are jelly donuts. Yes. The tradition is to eat fried foods because of the oil aspect of the miracle. And so one of the things is, of course, latkes. And there's another tradition in Judaism of eating fried cheese pancakes or various things with cheese. That's a whole different story. But the donuts are just one of the manifestations of that tradition of eating fried foods, and jelly donuts are just kind of the traditional thing that people do. When I think back to my childhood, that was always the Hanukkah donut, and it still is tried and true.
Well, listen, I think we've probably come to the. I hope you don't feel as if I was quizzing you too much.
Not at all. But I'm happy to talk about this and explain this for the community and for anybody watching. So it's really my pleasure to.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Now you'll come back for Passover. That's in March.
It's in the end of March. Yep, it is.
All right. Because I thought we may as well. I thought it would be interesting to kind of have a series of these, for the different holidays, because I think as I told you, I think for people who are not, I should just say not Jewish, I think there's an exoticism and a kind of a mystery for us about all of these stories and the practices, and I think it's very, charm. I don't mean to be dismissive, but there's a charm to it for people who aren't Jewish and who then learn these stories and these practices. So.
Well, I think it's a wonderful idea to sort of get deeper into the diversity of this community. And certainly I know that our community at Temple Beth Torah are very happy to be sort of part of that diverse fabric. And certainly also for your Jewish viewers, it's an opportunity to review or to learn something new too. And I'm happy to share whatever would be sort of meaningful in that regard.
Well, so last night was the first night. So you're going to end on the night of the 18th?
Yes, we
Or is
end,
it the morning of the
It's on, goodness, I got to check my calendar.
Well, the 18th, the 18th is a week from today. I didn't know if it went through the night of the 18th.
No, it does not. So the Jewish day starts at night. It goes from night to day. So the 8th night is actually on Thursday, next Thursday. And it'll go through Friday until sundown on Friday. And then that's it. Then it's over.
Well, listen, thank you very much. And I really am happy Hanukkah to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. And thanks to everybody for watching. We wanted to have this, I don't know if we've ever done anything for Hanukkah on NCTV, so I thought it was time. And thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time with Rabbi Mimi. She's going to come back for Passover. And we'll see everybody and try to stay warm. All right. Thank you, Rabbi Mimi. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.